Good morning. So it is Monday, the 4th of May. May the 4th be with you. So it's been a couple of days since my last video. I think that was on the 28th. And about a week since my last weigh-in. And I said last time I was at the doctor's, got weighed there. And since then, I've lost another 2 kilos. So I'm 122.7 kilos now, which is good. So the weight loss is still progressing. Now, I was quite excited for that doctor's appointment because I thought they were going to do another full blood test for me. And they did take blood. And the one thing I was looking forward to was seeing my HbA1c results, which is a good indication as to how my diet and my weight loss has affected my diabetes, i.e., pushed me towards remission. So after I'd been to the appointment, I waited a couple of days, checked on the NHS app, and all I saw was a liver panel result, which I thought was quite strange. And I thought, well, maybe that was the first test that was ready and they published that. And I was waiting for the rest to come through. And I waited another day and nothing. So I called the surgery and said, hey, look, I came in for a blood test and all I've got through is the liver results. When do you think I'll be able to get the rest? And I was told they'd only done the liver test, which I thought was quite strange because the first 2 blood tests that I'd had prior to my diabetes diagnosis, both of those blood tests came back with my liver values being perfectly in the green area. So no real requirement for that to be tested again. So I asked the question, and the woman in the surgery on the phone said she didn't know. So I then asked if it would be possible for me to come in and get at least my HbA1c values tested. And she said, well, typically that will be done after a 3-month period after my first blood test. And that's basically due to the metformin takes 3 months to really get into your system. Now, at that point, I didn't tell her that after 6 days, I'd stopped taking the metformin because I really want to try and achieve the goals that I have of beating my diabetes into remission without using drugs or medication. So I said, okay, that's fine. We'll arrange an appointment sometime in June, which we have not yet done. She said I had to wait for a message to come through from the doctor's surgery. So, yeah, a bit disappointed that I've got to wait another essentially 2 months, so a month and a half now, until I get those results, because that will be the pivot point to say either what I'm doing is the right thing for me, or if I need to go back onto the metformin, which I will do if that's needed. So yeah, a bit disappointed. So another 6 weeks or so to wait until I can get that test done. I am going to try and book it as soon as possible and not wait until the end of June. So as you can see, today is a bit of a grey, cloudy day, but it is supposed to be brightening up this afternoon and back to sunshine and blue skies. Yesterday, we had a day of rain. My wife and I actually jumped into the car and headed westwards to try and find a spot that wasn't raining, which we successfully did, and had quite a nice day out, to be fair, and did a bit of a walk in another area, which was nice. Found a nice cafe with lovely coffee in a beautiful area. Anyway, so this week is looking to be fairly nice again, so that won't impact me with my walks at all this week. And at the end of this week, I'll be heading off to Corfu in Greece for a week, for a bit of a holiday with some of the family and my wife. She's coming out a day later due to work. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We went to Paxos and Corfu last month over the Easter period. And yeah, it was beautiful. That's sort of like my happy place. As soon as I step off the plane, you can feel yourself relaxing. So yeah, really am looking forward to getting back out there. So another thing that I was thinking about over the last week was we've been to a few places, met some new people over the last week. And the one thing that is interesting in a conversation with somebody new is they ask, the first question is, or one of the first questions is, what do you do? Because that seems to be your identity. What do you do? Oh, I'm a supervisor here. I'm a manager there. I run my business. I do this. I do that. I'm a doctor. And I've had that question posed now a couple of times over the last week. I've had quite a simple answer to it. And that is, what do I do? And I say, I do things that make me happy. And I'm not going to define myself by my job, which is, I think I've been guilty of all of my life. And that's one of those things that is where it becomes sort of like a status thing. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to be me and not my job title, even though at the minute I don't have a job title, which I'm thoroughly enjoying, by the way. But at some point, I will have some form of employment again. And thinking about sort of like my career going forward and the next steps, I think one of the things I'm going to try to do is open up some revenue streams for myself on the side. Now, one of those would be helping businesses, small businesses. Now, I've done that sort of like on the side in the past, pro bono, so not for money, over the last 10 years. What I found is there are a lot of people who are very good at what they do, be that a plumber, a painter, a mechanic, a florist, whatever it might be, a fitness trainer, very, very good at that specific task, but they are terrible business people and don't really have a grasp of what it means to run a business and how to scale that business. So I think that's something I'm going to be looking into a little bit more in depth and see if that's something that I can turn into a revenue stream for myself on a consulting sort of like basis. I'm still helping one company at the moment. That's been quite a long engagement over the last 2 years. And I've helped a lot of other companies, and that ranges anything from business strategy right through to social media and even content creation and how to market themselves. I've always said humans or people don't necessarily trust a business, but they trust people. So you need to build a brand around yourself and not just your business. So yeah, that's something I'm looking into. And if you're interested in a little bit more about that, then let me know in the comments and I'll put a little bit more of that content in some of the videos going forward. Yeah, so that's pretty much all from me today. Just to summarize, I was a bit frustrated about the non-existent blood test results. But yeah, that's not a bad thing. That will give me time to work on myself, my physical health for the next 6 weeks again, and make another big impact, hopefully. And hopefully those results coming back off that blood test will show me that I am doing the right thing. And like I said, if not, then I'll go back onto the metformin and follow the traditional medicine route, but still ensuring that I'm getting the exercise and carrying on with my weight loss journey, because that's something I need to do anyway. Talking about a little bit about side hustles and opening up some revenue streams, the weather, and my holiday next week. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you are liking what you're seeing, please do consider subscribing. Like the video and drop a comment below. That really, really does help me out. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.